is coming my way. Wherever I go, hard luck is there to stay. Good luck never stays a day. Bad luck's always coming my way.
Okay, start talking. You're on
Mess with
film.
me. Okay.
John, I'm going to ask you some questions and you try to be serious.
Yeah, begin to match. Okay. Okay, serious. Yes.
If they were to make a movie about your life, what would it be about?
It would be about something different than my life. People wouldn't come and see me. No, I'm teasing you.
Why do you stay in the bathroom for 5 hours at a time on sets?
I don't know, it's a shitty habit. I've got I don't have a habit of doing that. Sometimes I hide in other places so that they can't find me. But usually the bathroom is the only place with a lock on the door. No, I don't take drugs. I don't even like aspirins. I am a kind of a healthy person. I don't need drugs.
Are you vegetarian?
No, I'm not a vegetarian, but I'm just basically healthy, therefore I don't need drugs. I'm not a sick type of person. Mentally, possibly. So it cannot go on yet.
What you're looking at right now is the side parking lot and alley to what was once the Pussycat Theater here in Hollywood. Well, West Hollywood to be more specific. Now, if you don't know anything about Hollywood history, there are 2 adult films that came out in the 70s that were more popular than other ones. The first one was Deep Throat, and the second one was The Devil and Miss Jones. Well, it was this theater here in Hollywood that played them almost constantly, day and night, and there were lines around the block. Looking at the front of the building, you can see the marquee. It says Studs, and then home of the legendary Pussycat Theater. But right above it, it looks like that's the original sign. It says Studs and it's got the cat girl, but if you look very closely, it says Pussycat. At this point, you might be asking yourself, why on earth are you standing in front of the Pussycat Theater talking about adult films when clearly this video is about the Wonderland Murders? Well, John Holmes, the legendary porn actor, who basically because of him, the murders happened, his handprints and his name are outside this theater. This is the Porn Walk of Fame. To be honest, I thought the Porn Walk of Fame would be a lot bigger than this, no pun intended. But there's 2 people right here, I don't know who these guys are, Harry Reams and Jay Lawrence. There's the footprints, the handprints, and the signature of Linda Lovelace. Marilyn Chambers looks like she took her shoes off and just put her feet in there. Somebody by the name of Georgina is out here as well. Kay Parker and Eric Edwards. But we are here because of this man right here, John C. Holmes. Well, people knew him as Johnny Wad. It looks like he was here February 7th, 1985. About 3 years before he died from complications of AIDS.
In 1985, he entered the porn industry's Hall of Fame.
Oh.
He was to make his last film in '86, and from there, cocaine and illness destroyed him.
The drug situation became excessive to the point that it debilitated him. And in that debilitation, he was open to anything that could crawl into his system and literally die there and eventually killed him.
Holmes had surgery for colon cancer, but it's reported AIDS was the ultimate killer. Some believe he contracted in prison. Holmes was a central figure in an unsolved 1981 mass murder in Laurel Canyon. He was acquitted, but spent 4 months in prison for refusing to identify the killers.
So who was John Holmes, and what was his connection to the Wonderland gang, the Wonderland Murders? Well, in the 1970s, John Holmes was the most famous porn star in the world, mainly because he had a very large body part. Rumor is somewhere around 13 inches. You know the movie Boogie Nights? It's based off of him.
Jack Warner, filmmaker.
Marker.
I make adult films, exotic pictures.
Who's your daddy? I only am who I am because I was born that way. I have a gift, and I am trying to not be selfish about it, but to use it. And if you want to knock me for that, it's your own problem.
Aside from the movie Boogie Nights, there's another movie that came out called Wonderland starring Val Kilmer. It's a great movie. If you haven't seen it, highly recommend watching it after this video. Now, John Holmes, the most famous porn star in the 70s, also had a massive cocaine problem. It got so bad that I think he was making somewhere around $1,000 a day, but he was also spending $1,500 a day in cocaine. It got so bad that he ended up missing a lot of work. He wouldn't show up for scenes, or if he did, in between takes, he'd be in the bathroom doing cocaine. And he wasn't really performing like he used to. And he kind of became the butt of jokes in the porn industry here in California. In order to support his drug habit, John Holmes joined the Wonderland Gang. It was a group of people who lived in a house over on Wonderland Avenue. That's how they got their name, and we're going to visit it in just a moment. Now, this gang, what they would do, they would go out and they would rob people, steal different things, petty theft. And John Holmes would take what they stole over to his friend, a man by the name of Eddie Nash. And he would sell it or trade it for drugs and take it back to the gang, and they would get high. Before we head over to the Wonderland house, we need to make a stop at where Eddie Nash's house once stood. You need to realize that by the time that John Holmes got involved with the Wonderland Gang, he was basically exiled from the porn industry because of his drug addiction. He was basically stealing and committing crimes to support his habit, as well as every other daily functions. He was stealing luggage from LAX, trading in things that he stole to Eddie Nash for drugs. Now, his relationship with Eddie Nash basically goes back to whenever he was pretty much at his height in the porn industry here in LA. Eddie Nash owned a bunch of nightclubs. He was the main cocaine dealer here in town. He had a reputation that he was a person that you did not want to mess with. But for some reason, John Holmes did. Like I said, Eddie Nash's house has been torn down. You see that big white house at the end of the street? That's the house that stands there now. Now, for whatever reason, I mean, John Holmes and everybody here in LA knew that Eddie Nash was a person that you didn't want to mess with. But at the same time, they knew that in this house, well, the house that used to stand here, there was a lot of drugs and a lot of money. And the Wonderland Gang decided that it was a good idea to rob Eddie Nash. The biggest mistake of all mistakes that you can imagine. The story goes, in the house that once stood here, 2 nights before the Wonderland murders, John Holmes came here to Eddie Nash, probably to trade in whatever they stole for drugs. And he left the back door open, like the sliding glass door. Not too long after he left, 2 people dressed as police officers showed up, went inside, robbed Eddie Nash, had him open up a safe, got him down on his knees, and supposedly Eddie Nash begged for his life. It was pretty embarrassing for him. I mean, he was a big drug kingpin. Now, the 2 people who were robbing him also shot Eddie Nash's security guard that night. He lived. It was just like a flesh wound, if you will. He survived, didn't die. But not only did it hurt the pride of Eddie Nash, but it severely pissed him off. I mean, who in their right mind would rob this man? Because the house has been torn down, there's really nothing we can line up. In fact, there's actually just one photo that was taken out front of this house as Eddie Nash was getting arrested. And you really can't see much of the house except for the stone wall on the outside of it. Now, if I'm correct, before it was torn down, a couple years before it was renovated. So the front of the house didn't even look like that. But this is definitely where it stood. Right now I'm standing at the bottom of Wonderland Avenue. You have to park way down here and walk up to the house because, well, there's really no parking on the street unless you live there. It was a bit of a trek. It's a mountain, Lookout Mountain. I just want to give a little heads up. We get asked to do this video all the time, and to be honest, I've been wanting to do this video ever since we moved here. But there's a woman who lives in the house now, that lives in the Wonderland gang house, who does not like people stopping by, taking pictures, and shooting video. I've heard horror stories, I've seen horror videos. Don't really know what to expect, but quite honestly, I'm a little nervous to walk up this hill. It's kind of like a rite of passage for Hollywood true crime. With that being said, from here on out, if something happens, I apologize, and you're probably going to be able to hear the nerves in my voice. Just fair warning. I have to be completely honest. Walking up Wonderland Avenue has got my nerves going. I've heard horror stories about people coming here to visit the spot and having issues with the homeowner. So of course, we're going to be respectful. We always are. But that one right there with the white car, that is the Wonderland house. Crazy, right? So the story goes, John Holmes led 3 of Eddie Nash's men here, right up those steps, beyond that gate to the right of the building. Rang the doorbell, and the gang, the Wonderland gang, recognized him, so they let him in. John Holmes and 3 of Nash's men go inside this building, and they brutally beat 4 people to death. 1 survivor. The first floor, right above the carport there was 1 person. 2 people up on the 2nd floor. 1 person in the back. And the girl who survived, her head was so bashed in that somehow it saved her. She had brain damage. But that's it. Probably one of the most famous true crime spots here in Los Angeles, aside from, Charles Manson and Sharon Tate and all that jazz. Now, according to John Holmes, once they got inside the house, 2 men actually did the beating, and 1 held John Holmes up to the wall and said, "You need to watch. You caused all this." The next morning, the bodies were found because somebody, and I'm thinking it's the house that's over to the left. I don't know if that's original or if that's been redone, but somebody actually heard somebody moaning and making sounds. That's the one who survived with the brain damage. But the next morning they found the 4 victims, the girl who survived, barely. And there was a bloody handprint on the wall that belonged to John Holmes. Now, even though that put him here at the house, at the murder house, nobody could ever prove that he actually did any of the killing. So even though he went to court and he was tried, he wasn't convicted. Now, if you buy the Wonderland DVD, there's a special features, and in it, the crime scene video that was shot the day the bodies were found is listed on that as special feature. So if you want to see it, go ahead and watch it. I think it was the very first time ever that a video like that was created and allowed to be shown to the public.
We are at 8763 Wonderland Drive. Now moving towards the front of the location. Looking in a northwesterly direction towards the entrance of a 3-level single-family residence. License number 741 Nora Queen Victor, located in the garage beneath the residence at 8763 Wonderland. entrance on the residence.
Our adventures into the Wonderland Murders now brings us to Culver City, to the Holy Cross Cemetery, the same cemetery where Bela Lugosi is laid to rest. So many other people, including Eddie Nash himself. Eddie Nash died at the age of 85 from emphysema. And his final resting place is here in Block 23 of the main mausoleum. Now, if you come here looking for the name Eddie Nash, it's not on his stone, his marble plate here in the crypt. I'm going to show you what I mean here in a second. And there it is, the final resting place of Eddie Nash. And you see what I mean? It doesn't say Eddie Nash anywhere on the stone. It was his nickname. Now, his real name, I'm going to try really hard to get this right, Adel Garib Nasrallah. 1929 to 2014, and underneath that it says, "Beloved Father, you will always be in our hearts." It's nice. Now here's the thing about Eddie Nash. Like I said, same thing with John Holmes. Everybody knew that he was involved in one way, shape, or form. He was even went to trial for the murders and he got acquitted just like John Holmes did. They actually got him on a couple other things and he spent like 4 years, something like that, in jail. And the only thing he ever admitted to was the fact that yes, he was robbed by two people, the Wonderland gang. That's how it all started. But he never once said anything about any of the murders. Even though stories around Hollywood said otherwise, he never confessed to anything. It's crazy. You know, the more you find information on the Wonderland murders and what happened, there's a whole bunch of hearsay and he said this, she said that, and rumors and legend. It's really hard to put together an accurate timeline. I mean, to be fair, to this day, nobody really knows what happened and how it happened. Crazy, right? It just occurred to me that I didn't show you where in the hallway Eddie Nash is interred. And it's right there, up towards the ceiling, the second one down, the second row. With that being said, thank you for joining us on another grim adventure, this time telling the story of the Wonderland Murders. Until next time, happy Halloween.
Wherever I come, bad luck is coming my way. Wherever I go, hard luck is there to stay. Good luck never stays a day. Bad luck's always coming my way.